'cause I don't give a fuck what you say. Yeah, I'ma do shit my way. So you can go kick rocks, I'ma stack bricks up, build what I want to make. Yo, I got a lot of shit to say, so I'ma do this every day. I'll be writing things until I'm fucking buried in my grave.
Thank you, sir. It's going to be a white Dodge van and a dark colored caddy. They're going to be on, one of the calls is on 16th. The other says blocking on Monroe.
One time, should we go on the tow line and follow up?
One time.
Got a huge show ahead for you. And my gratitude, as always, to the tens of thousands of people who are already piling in on Rumble. Thank you for that. We'll see those numbers continue to grow. And thank you also for the number 7 position for podcasts in the entire country, according to PodTrack this week. Again, if we can just defund NPR, we'd be number 5. The left rigs everything. Why can't we do a little rigging? Let's get rid of these guys and let's get to number 5. Thank you for joining us today. Hey, the left, speaking of the left, their bloodthirst is out of control, just completely out of control, reaching record levels. We'll get into some of the numbers behind that. Really scary where everything is headed. We're also going to talk about Dan Bongino. He's the deputy director of the FBI, as you well know. The threats to him, I think, are pretty real, as you might imagine. And as a result, he's got a security detail protecting him. NBC is trying to scandalize that this week because they're trying to hurt him. They're trying to smear him for being protected from the radical left. And if you're looking for evidence that they're trying to smear him, look no further than the fact that they include Frank Fugazi in the attack, which really tells you everything. Oh, yeah, that guy's a neutral arbiter of all things, Dan Bongino. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That'll come up soon. And then the president battling it out with China. Now, 104% tariffs on China as of this hour. Where does all of this go? We'll discuss it all ahead on Vince. Glad to have you with us today. All right. Let me share with you some important information about our sponsors, and I will as soon as our production booth puts the ad copy in front of me. I know that we've had so many crazy fits and starts this morning. Justin, what do we got, brother? Tell the audience whose fault this is. Go ahead, Justin. It's the deep state, he says. Justin's working on this. Justin, who am I supposed to tell people about right now? Tell me. Patriot Mobile. Okay, so I will do the hard work of pulling it up on my computer while you guys try and figure out how to get to that. You have it up? There it is. Oh, hey, look at that. Yeah, this is going splendidly. Thank you, everybody. Hey, while we may have won this election, the fight to restore our great nation is only just beginning. Now is the time to take a stand. Patriot Mobile is leading the charge as America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. Patriot Mobile offers a way to vote with your wallet without compromising on either quality or convenience. Patriot Mobile isn't just about providing exceptional cell phone service. It's a call to action to defend our rights and our freedoms. With Patriot Mobile, you will get outstanding nationwide coverage because, look, it's very simple. They operate on all 3 major networks, which is very cool. And if you have cell phone service today, you can get cell phone service with Patriot Mobile very easily with a coverage guarantee. But here's the big difference for you. Every dollar that you spend supports a company that believes in the First and the Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, and our veterans and our first responders. Switching is so completely easy. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or even upgrade. Their 100% U.S.-based customer support team will help you find the perfect plan. Right now, go to patriotmobile.com/Vince or call 972-PATRIOT, and you will get a free month of service with the promo code Vince. Switch to Patriot Mobile today and defend freedom with every call and text that you make. Visit patriotmobile.com/Vince or call 972-PATRIOT, and we're off. What's a Wednesday without a couple of humps in the show? Great to be here with you today, as always. We've got record assassination culture right now going on the left. Have you detected this at all? That the left has become very okay with political violence? Perhaps, during the campaign when there were multiple attempts on President Trump's life, or perhaps the nonstop left-wing attacks on American cities, the billions of dollars in damage, the murders at the hands of the left-wing rioters, the people who are menacing Tesla dealerships and pooping on Tesla vehicles and scratching them up and throwing Molotov cocktails. Have you detected this phenomenon? Kind of all over the place. And it's the left's leaders who have breathed a whole bunch of life into this. They rationalize this all the time. They're like, well, violence is bad, but you can see why people might do something like that. That's generally, to the extent that they say anything about it, they might say that. But they've been breathing life into this, and they do it by advancing a whole bunch of lies. They say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, that our very democracy is going to be destroyed by this. And what they really mean, of course, is that their bureaucracy, their rigged system, their captured system is under threat because of our democratic principles fighting back against them. Our constitutional republic has decided we don't want you in charge anymore. So the voters speak, and then they say that's a threat to democracy. You understand the system. And then they convince their base, they groom their base into believing that their goals, whatever they happen to be, and fundamentally they're just power for the left, should be achieved by any means necessary. What does that mean? By any means necessary. It means up to and including murder, up to and including grotesque acts of violence. It's all justified because it serves some sort of greater moral good. So therefore, do this, and you are justified in your attacks. You're allowed to take such heinous steps. That's the left. And that brings us to today, where we have a brand new survey on the subject. How's the left feel about all of this? Assassination culture has exploded on the left. There's a new poll that shows about half of liberals believe that killing President Trump and Elon Musk are justified. In fact, a majority of the respondents say that the left-wing respondents, the left of center people, left of center is a very generous interpretation. These are very left-wing people. They found the majority of them say that it's okay, it's justified to assassinate the president of the United States, Donald Trump. New survey finding assassination culture growing on the American left since the attempted killing of President Trump in July of 2024. Data released this week, Monday, from the Network Contagion Research Institute found that 48% to 55% of left of center people, at least somewhat, justifying murder for Elon Musk and President Trump, respectively, which means 48% say it's okay for Elon, 55% say it's okay for President Trump. The findings come after a historically violent election season in 2024, with two known assassination attempts on the president in July and September. I want to emphasize something I added, the known assassination attempts component. Those are just the ones we know about. Those are the most kind of the closest ones that we are aware of. As we saw the assassination attempt in Butler, where the president was shot through the ear by a would-be assassin, that Crooks character, Thomas Crooks. And then we also had the Ukrainiac, the guy who wanted to kill Trump for Ukraine, who attempted to do that while hiding in the bushes with a weapon as the president of the United States was golfing. And luckily, a Secret Service agent, just a little bit ahead of the president, sees this guy, engages him, he takes off running, he gets captured. I've got more on his story in just a moment and his efforts to try and kill the president. But this survey finds that these attitudes are not fringe. Unfortunately, it's not a small number of lefties who feel this way. It reflects an emergent assassination culture, they find, grounded in far left authoritarianism and increasingly normalized digital discourse. The group produced its study with the Rutgers University Social Perception Lab and surveyed just over 1,000 American citizens about their attitudes towards political violence. 48.6% saying murdering Elon Musk is justified. 55%, these are of left-wingers, saying that murdering President Trump is justified. This is a deeply, deeply dangerous development in the United States, and it is the left's leaders who are doing it. Insofar as anybody has a permission structure in their head for this, it's the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world, the Chuck Schumers, the vile, demented language that they use to describe the choice of voters. Joe Biden did this throughout his presidency. He was describing people who vote for Trump as advancing, quote, threats to our democracy, which is another way of saying that our system is existentially dependent on preventing Trump from becoming president. That if he does, our country is going to die. And so when you keep saying that, it turns out not just crazy people, but even the people who represent the majority of the American left, and you can broadly categorize them as crazy, but I just mean the full-blown mentally ill are going to be susceptible to some of those signals. But when you have a majority of people who identify as left-wing saying, yeah, it's justified, killing, totally justified, we've reached something very dangerous, haven't we? And this is a trend. This is not a new development. You can say, okay, look, this NCRI group that pulled this data together with Rutgers University. Rutgers not some hotbed of right-wingism or anything. But say you want to question them. That's fine. The Network Contagion Research Institute. But the reality is this has been a trend. This has been a trend. Let me take you back in time. This is a survey from late 2024. This is September of 2024 that was performed by Scott Rasmussen at RMG Research. Take a look at this. 17% say America would be better off if Trump had been killed. This was in September of last year. This is before the election. And this is after the attempts on the president's life. The desensitization of Americans following the second assassination attempt of former President Trump is alarming. 17% of voters believe America would have been better off if the president had been killed in last week's attempted assassination. That was the second one by the Ukrainian. That figure includes 28% of Democrats who say that America would have been better off. Another 24% say they're not sure. Fewer than half of Democrats in the poll could bring themselves to say that America would not be better off if Trump had been assassinated. So the trend line is continuing here. This is the left's growing bloodlust. And that's, again, not the only one. There was a Southern Poverty Law Center poll that was done back in 2022. I'm going to show you this one now. Take a look at this. Now, SPLC, not right-wing at all. This is a left-wing, radical, disgraceful organization that took a once good name and absolutely destroyed it in the service of the most radical left-wing causes. The SPLC poll found that nearly half of young male Democrats approve of assassinating a politician who is harming our country or democracy. That was a left-wing group that conducted the survey back in 2022 and found that. So again, the numbers are only growing. And that brings me to a core point that I want to make here that I don't feel like we have clear answers on. How many incoming assassination attempts or threats have President Trump and Elon Musk in particular received? Now, I'm a little torn on whether or not we want to know the answer to that. Or, tell me, do you want to know the answer? Do you want the administration to be transparent with us, to tell us about how many incoming assassination attempts or threats there have been? Do you want an answer to that question? Because right now, the administration is not being forthcoming. They're not telling us that. That might be because they don't want to, scare anybody or make anybody nervous about how unstable things are. But at the same time, I do feel like it's important that the American people know just how crazy the left has made things. Yeah, so there's a mixed response going on right now in the chat, and I can see why. There's a lot of yeses coming in. I do think that it's not going to change the fact that the president is protected at all. The president's protected by the Secret Service, and hopefully it's a lot better protection he was really receiving on July of last year. Elon Musk, of course, needs protection. He's under constant threat. You know this. And I think that they should share the story. I think they should talk about the volume of this. I'm inclined to think. Because I want the rest of the American people to know just how insane the left has become and just how pervasive this grooming has become. They've been grooming their base into, that's right, somebody says a communist hate machine. Yeah, they've been grooming their base into this. So it might be worthwhile. At least it's worth the White House considering this, making a considered judgment about releasing that. But you and I both know the incoming has to be immense. If you've got over half of all people who identify as center left saying, "Yeah, I could see that. Take them out," we're in a very dangerous territory. In fact, in a moment, I want to share with you what's going on with Dan Bongino, and the NBC is attacking Dan for having protection. There are FBI agents who've been assigned to protect Dan, to keep him safe and alive in order to do his job. You and I know there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And NBC is attacking him. They're making him seem like some sort of out of touch elitist for having protection, which my guess is he didn't even ask for. He didn't even ask for. More in a moment on that. I'll get your reaction to all of this ahead as well. But first, did you know that Fast Growing Trees is the biggest online nursery in the United States with thousands of different plants and over 2 million happy customers? They've got all of the plants that your yard needs. They've got fruit trees, privacy trees, flowering trees, shrubs, and so much more. And whatever plants you're interested in, Fast Growing Trees, they've got you covered. You can order online. You can get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days. The packaging is awesome. I just received my redbud tree the other day, and the box around it was very well done. As soon as it arrives, it's got a little note on it. It says, hey, open it up, get it out, get it planted so the thing can stay alive and healthy. They have an Alive and Thrive guarantee that ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. And you will get support from trained plant experts, if you'd like, on call to help you plan your landscape. It's an amazing service. All my gardening friends use Fast Growing Trees. They love it. This spring, they've got the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And listeners to this program get 15% off their first purchase when using the code Vince at checkout. That's an additional 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com using the code Vince at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com for details. Fast Growing Trees. Okay, let me get into what's going on with NBC, and what I'm going to allow them to do first is to give you their absurd segment where they say, "Well, this is crazy. Dan has protection now." FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and they like to besmirch him. They like to say that, "Oh, he's just it's meant to be an insult. He was just a podcaster. Why is this guy the Deputy Director of the FBI?" Listen to this sanctimonious, horrific segment from NBC, and then I'll explain what's going on the other side. Here's cut 12, NBC's ridiculous report on Dan.
NBC News has exclusive new reporting about a first for the FBI. The agency is creating a multi-agent bodyguard team to protect the Bureau's number 2, Dan Bongino. NBC's Ken Delanian has the reporting. Ken, this has never happened before, I think. Why now?
Good afternoon, Chris. Yes, it's never happened before because every previous deputy director of the FBI was a career agent with a badge and a gun. And so none of them ever felt the need for a full security detail. Bongino, of course, is a former podcaster with lots of experience criticizing the FBI, but no experience working there. Now, the FBI declined to answer our questions, so we don't know why it was decided that Bongino needed a full security detail. We do know that a notice went out inside the Bureau looking for field agents who would be willing to leave their jobs temporarily and work for 30 days at headquarters protecting Bongino. Now, current and former officials tell me this is going to be expensive because 24/7 protection will require as many as 20 agents who will have to be put up in temporary housing. And many people I talk to question the need for it, given that Bongino is a former Secret Service agent and New York police officer who could easily qualify to carry an FBI service weapon. They also point out that it runs contrary to FBI Director Kash Patel's desire to get FBI agents out of headquarters and into the field, where Patel says they can do more to fight crime. What's happening here is obviously the opposite. Dan Bongino is recruiting crime fighters to come back to headquarters and protect him at taxpayer expense. Bongino hasn't said anything about this, but in a recent post on X, he said he realized when he took this job that he was, quote, never going to be able to fully explain some decisions we make due to legal and ethical constraints. And he added, that's a pill I agreed to swallow. Chris?
Ken Delanian, thank you.
I mean, first of all, just I could work backwards on that. I could work forwards on that. I could work sideways on that. So much of what you heard was a massive distortion and a lie, and not at all surprising coming from Fusion Ken Delanian, the guy who is collaborating with the people who've been subverting our elections. Ken Delanian, who Dan Bongino has spent countless hours going after that guy, and rightfully so. And so, of course, this idea that he's going to be some dispassionate reporter on the subject of Dan Bongino is absurd on its face. But there he is on NBC saying that, oh, Dan is really, he's trying to hire personal security from the FBI so he can live a fancy lifestyle. That's the implication here, that you get personal security so you can feel like top dog and you've got people following you around. This is insane. This is totally insane. One, the idea that Dan is craving a security detail is mentally ill. Dan, it came from a world of the United States Secret Service. He served on protective details. The allure of having one and the constant attention that is required to the point of a dramatic inconvenience for the guy that's being protected and the guys who have to do the protecting. It's nothing glamorous about that. Dan knows that. The last thing Dan Bongino would be doing is taking guys off of critical roles in order to protect him for no reason other than to give him a glow up. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. Well, I've heard a lot of ridiculous things. It's one of the most ridiculous things I've heard this week from NBC. That's one. Another here, why do you think Dan needs protection? Why do you think Dan needs protection? I'll just give you a thought experiment. How many deputy directors of the FBI are you capable of naming? How many of them can you even name? Now, directors of the FBI, typically people can name them. Or at least some can. Deputy directors, almost nobody can name a deputy director. Almost nobody. Very few. Yeah, Andrew McCabe popping up in the chat. That's the one, right? Andrew McCabe was fired for lying to the American people, lying to the FBI. And now, of course, he's got plum gigs on cable news, being an expert on everything. He's a liar, so of course he becomes a burning bush in the world of the legacy media. But you can't. Dan's the exception. Dan is a guy with a massive, massive profile. I don't need to tell this audience. You know who Dan Bongino is. Everywhere Dan goes, people stop him. They talk to him. They shake his hand. They recognize him. He's recognizable. So he's got a recognizable name, a recognizable face, and a very public presence. And he's been tasked to take on the FBI in a world that doesn't like him, for one. Or at least probably doesn't by big margins, because he's been that critical of the agency. And the left definitely doesn't like him. Their view is that Dan is synonymous with Trump. And what do the numbers show us about Trump? What do the numbers show us? Oh, that's right. Assassination culture is in play for the left. That polls show that half of liberals believe killing the highest profile conservatives is justified. That's the data. So you think Dan is pulling people off of these assignments in the FBI for his own protection? No. That's crazy. In some ways, I don't know if it's the case right now, but at any given point, Dan had a bigger profile than Kash Patel. Kash Patel, the director of the FBI. So what you and I can infer from all of this, this is not predicated on insider knowledge or anything like that. I'm just going to stipulate that. I'm just telling you, you can instantly infer from this that the threat environment is so consequential right now to guys like Dan that they need the protection to take care of him. Also, the NBC report acts as if this security just started. Like, oh, they just started protecting him. It was not a secret. When I showed up in Florida, when Dan and I were doing the handoff in Florida for this time slot for this program, Dan didn't keep it a secret. It wasn't a secret. There were FBI personnel who were already there in Florida, already protecting him. And when I say personnel, I'm not talking one. There were multiple people there to protect him. This is because it was already publicly announced that he was the FBI deputy director incoming before he even took the job. Why would that happen? Why would that happen? The answer to that question seems really clear to me and should seem clear to you. The left is this intense and violent and out of its mind that the FBI by that point, that Kash Patel by that point had assessed, we got to protect this guy. He's not even in the job yet. We have to have protection for him. So NBC tripping over itself here in this report, saying, oh, this is a new thing. There's nothing new about it. This is like everything about this is a distortion. Also, thank you, fellas, putting this up. You think Fusion Ken Delanian is not a tell that this is a smear job? Look at this. Former senior FBI official Frank Fugazi, an NBC News analyst, an NBC News contributor, criticized Bongino's decision to not simply carry a weapon as past deputy directors have done. This is Frank Fugazi. Frank Fugazi, Mr. 88, who literally just makes up conspiracy theories on the air. who hates Dan Bongino, who has it out to get Dan Bongino. He's called upon as an expert for this story. And Fugazi says, well, of course he could carry. This is ridiculous. The question is, what is the actual risk and threat here? Or does he just want a detail? Oh, yeah, that's what Dan wants. Dan wants the inconvenience of people just hanging around him all the time and watching his every move like a hawk. That's, again, psychotic. This is taxpayer money, says Frank Fugazi, we're talking about. This is taxpayer money. You know, part of this is, I don't know about you, but I don't think conservatives really long for security details. I don't know a single conservative who's like, you know what I really wish I had in my life? A bunch of armed guards following me all over the place. No, conservatives typically move to defend themselves. Typically. It's an inconvenience to have a bunch of people around you to be a part of something like that. It's the left and people like Frank Fugazi who are scared of guns but desperately want armed guards around them to protect them from everybody else that typically thinks in this way. Like who looks at all of this and goes like, oh, that's the high life. I need armed guards. Hell no. I don't want that at all. The left thinks that way. The left is very used to that. Democrat members of Congress who are trying to disarm you, take your guns away. They've got armed guards. Cory Booker, United States Senator from New Jersey, his private armed guard just got busted carrying a gun into the United States Capitol. This past week, that was just ahead of his ridiculous filibuster, his talkathon that he did. The guy gets arrested going into the Capitol building. So that's the left's attitude. We've got our armed guards. Americans need to be disarmed. We want armed guards. That proves that we're important. It's an expression of that. It's the same reason that the Biden administration didn't give RFK Jr. Secret Service protection. Biden didn't want to convey to the American people that RFK was important and worthy of protection, so they didn't give him a Secret Service detail. They didn't want to legitimize his presidential campaign because in their view, a security detail creates the impression that you are important, therefore we'd be helping him politically. What a bunch of psychos. And RFK, of course, had to hire his own private security to defend himself from the many incoming attacks, which makes sense given that the Kennedys are the most assassinated family in political history in the United States. So these are the left's attitudes about all of this. One other thing about this NBC piece that I want to bring your attention to. They claim that this is unprecedented that an FBI deputy director would have armed protection. They claim, you heard it just a moment ago. Look at this line from the NBC piece on the subject. A single agent was assigned part-time to accompany the previous deputy director, Paul Abate, to certain events, current and former officials said. And then they point out that Abate also carried his own service weapon, they added. And he had a full detail when he traveled overseas. Oh, okay. So it's not without precedent, actually. FBI deputy directors do receive protection. And again, by inference, the threat environment that we live in now, that Dan lives in now, suggests that he needs a lot more. His profile's higher. The left hates him big time. And a majority of lefties say assassinating high-profile conservatives, totally okay, totally justified. So there's NBC. NBC, what is the end result of that? Measure them by the effect of a story like this. What do they want to see happen? They want to see Dan move unprotected. They want his protection to go away. No more for you. We hate you. The last thing we want is for you to be protected from the kind of people that we speak to on a daily basis on MSNBC. Really crazy. Anyway, I wanted to give you that update. I knew we could tear these guys limb from limb, and I'm glad we did. In the chat, very much on board here. This is crazy what's happening with NBC. And Frank is Fugazi, says knows truth. Amazing. So, these guys are really disgusting. And they use like these news packages. They dress them up in news packages to pretend like they're telling you news. They're not. They're trying to smear the guy and trying to make him less safe. Really, really grotesque. All right, coming up, I want to tell you about what's going on with the trade war with China, as China's trying to up the ante this morning. And President Trump saying, I'm not playing around. 104% tariffs right now on China. My guess is maybe later today we'll see those numbers go up even higher. to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or condition. And let's see here. And look, we're about to talk about the economy, and you're right. Things are topsy-turvy right now in the economy. And as a result, it can feel like you're walking on shaky ground. Prices have been stuck at a really high level since Biden screwed everything up. And it seems like nothing is affordable anymore. The president's working on that, but it's no wonder many are relying on credit cards to cover the gaps. Credit card debt is skyrocketing. It's leaving a lot of people stressed out. If you're a homeowner, you don't have to face this uncertainty alone. My friends over at American Financing can help you take control. They help you access the equity in your home to help you pay down that high-interest credit card debt, giving you peace of mind and real savings. On average, people just like you are saving $800 a month. Plus, they may close your loan in as little as 10 days. Don't let the chaos of the economy get the best of you. Call American Financing now. It costs you nothing to get started, and you may delay 2 mortgage payments, giving you a cushion in this uncertain time. 888-879-6460. That's 888-879-6460. AmericanFinancing.net/Vince, NMLS 182334, NMLSConsumerAccess.org. Yeah. So Dan Bongino getting attacked here today, which what does that mean when the media is attacking you? I think it means you're over the target. I think that they're really annoyed by what they believe to be a very effective time for Dan as the deputy director of the FBI. In fact, I do have one message from Dan this morning. He posted an update for you. Here you go. I'll put this up on the big screen here for you. Here's Dan today. And he said, hey, thank you. Again, he's giving these updates, which are good. I love these updates. Signs of progress and a sign of respect for the American people by giving these to us. He says, many of you have asked about our recent high-profile arrests of violent criminals here illegally. He emphasizes border security is national security. The FBI will continue to provide its investigative expertise to track down violent criminals who are in the country illegally. Yeah, the FBI's had a lot of good public reports on this. Kash Patel keeps coming out talking about all of the MS-13 Tren de Aragua guys that they're rounding up and getting off the streets of our country. And thank God for that. That is obviously one of the top reasons that President Trump got elected, getting control of that border. Also, Dan says that the director Kash Patel and I have already begun the process of reforming how we evaluate the 3 tiers of employees. Okay, this is about within the FBI itself. The leaders, the managers, the agents and the professional class, and the new employees and the trainees. Let me pause on that last one, the new employees and the trainees. They have record recruitment going on right now at the FBI. That is a direct result of the change of leadership in our government, the change of leadership at that agency, record numbers of applications coming into the FBI. So they've got this is a good problem to have, because that means that you can choose the cream of the crop from the people who are applying. So Dan expressing that that's one of the core things that they're dealing with right now. That makes a lot of sense. He says some of these changes have already been implemented to how they evaluate everybody at the FBI. Other changes are going to take more time. And then he reemphasizes once again that he realizes that asking you to trust me, he says, is an insult. This isn't a trust me business. It's a get stuff done business. So you will see results. This is another way of saying what you have been asking for, what I've been asking for. Look, we've gotten a lot of talk over all these many years. We've seen a lot of congressional hearings. We've seen a lot of testimony. We hear a lot about criminality going on. We know about the whole Hunter Biden laptop. We know all the money that's flowing in. We know the Jeffrey Epstein saga. We know they have blackmail tapes of all of these guys. We know all of these details. The discovery phase for the American people, by and large, is over. We're looking for the action phase. We are looking for the prosecution phase. We are looking for the FO phase from the FAFO component. That's what we're looking for. And so this is a not subtle way of Dan saying, in all capital letters, you will see results. Good. I take that as a clear indication that we're going to get some of that very soon, I hope. What the director and I are doing is not an accident, says Dan. Reform and results are our only priorities. We have no other agenda. We didn't come here to let America down. Watch what happens. Continue to demand results. Be cautious when you're told a story and not the story. which is, of course, tried and true advice from Dan, and let time put the puzzle pieces together. What we're doing will make sense. We see you and we hear you and your feedback. Thanks again for your time, Dan. All right, so that's the update from Dan Bongino. That's excellent. Love that. Love that update. And just so you know, don't get NBC's version of events. Take my version. It's a lot better. It's the truth. All right. The president has hiked tariffs on China. And the reason for that is because China has imposed trade barriers on us. And China is notorious. We've talked about this a lot. Think about all the ways that China takes advantage of us and has for many decades now. China steals all the intellectual property from the United States. If you want to do business in China, if you want to manufacture in China, a precondition for that the entire business community knows is China's going to steal your stuff, create crappy carbon copies of it, and then export it all over the planet. That's insane. China's been doing it for a very long time. China manipulates its currency. China subsidizes industries to try and destroy American industries. China is a bad actor when it comes to global trade. And for far too long, presidents have just let it happen. In fact, in many ways, Washington enabled it to happen with every step of the way, from the World Trade Organization to the way that they treat China as a, quote, developing nation in order to give it all sorts of strategic advantages. We're being sold out. We have been sold out by our nation's leaders. Trump is the first guy in a very long time to come along to say, no more. No more. We're not doing that anymore. And so that brings us to the president's announcement yesterday. Watch. This is cut one, the White House announcing these tariffs are now going up to 104%. Look.
You mentioned the 70 countries or so. I'm curious, though, under what conditions at this point would President Trump talk to President Xi about tariffs?
Look, I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but he's going to do what's best for the American people.
Yeah, go ahead. Reach out. Let's see what we can do. But I'm doing whatever I can for the American people here. So the update on that story, and I've got more audio from the president and from the White House on all of this, and from Democrats who flipped all over the place on this subject. The update this morning is that China has now announced that they're increasing their tariffs to 84%. Now, once again, we have the lion's share of the leverage here. Most of the product is flowing one way, and our money is flowing out. That's principally what's going on here. We have a massive trade deficit with China. So they can go ahead and slap all they want. They can slap every tariff they possibly want on us. But in the end, it's going to be China that suffers the most. And China's economy is not in some super strong position that they can just give up on one of the most important export markets they have, the United States of America. So President Trump is engaging them in a game of chicken right now where they're a lot closer to the cliff than we are, and everyone's hurtling in that direction. So that's a good sign. In other words, we've got the leverage. That's the update today. So we'll see how the president responds to all of this. He may just keep jacking this thing up. He may keep doing that. Now, as far as China is concerned, the president has said this, that he wants to stand with the workers of the United States. Last night, he spoke to the National Republican Congressional Committee, and it was a black tie event that he was at. And he said, first and foremost, countries are calling him right now. All these countries all across the planet, they're calling him and kissing his ass. Take a look. Cut 6. Here's President Trump with that update.
In the history of our country. And don't let some of these politicians go around saying, because I'm telling you, these countries are calling us up, kissing my ass. They are dying to make a deal. Please, sir, make a deal. I'll do anything, sir. And then I'll see some rebel Republican, some guy that wants to grandstand, say, I think that Congress should take over negotiations. Let me tell you, you don't negotiate like I negotiate.
Yeah, butt out of it. A couple messages in there for a whole bunch of different people. At the end, of course, you heard the president giving a message to Congress. Stay out of this. Stay out of this. Stop trying to seize control of this tariff fight from me. You don't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing. This is what I ran on. This is what the American people voted for. What are you going to rob the American people of their desire here to fix this imbalance, to fix this system? And then the message that he's got there, he's like, all these countries are calling and they're kissing my ass now. They're sucking up to me. The reason for that is, one, they have tariffs imposed on them right now, and they'd like for those to go away. Two, we've got a situation where China now has 104% tariffs imposed on them by the president of the United States. 104%. What do you think the message is in that for every other country on the planet? Oh, you want to play the retaliation game with me? You want to go tit for tat? You want to escalate? Watch what happens to one of our biggest adversaries. Watch what happens to one of the biggest economies we deal with on the planet, China. What's the message to the rest of those countries, to those smaller countries right now? Oh, Trump's not playing. He's not picking off the weak gazelle. He's going after the strongest antelope he can get. You know, he's going after these guys as hard as he possibly can. The message to the rest of the world is, don't screw with Trump. Don't. Look what's happening with China right now. And as he goes after China, many of these countries, places like India and Vietnam and Singapore, they have to be thinking to themselves, well, crap, whatever's bad for China might be good for me. Maybe I could benefit out of all of this. If China's locking horns with the United States, this is a perfect opportunity for me to figure out a way to get a lot of business in my country. So they would do well to heed what the president is indicating here. Cut 7 here. President Trump indicates that the people who are complaining about all of this, the ones who are shrieking the loudest, are the people who've been selling you out. Look at this.
But the shrill voices that you're hearing this week about tariffs are the same scoundrels and frauds who never thought twice about when the United States lost 90,000 factories and plants. Think of that, 90,000.
Yeah.
How do you do 90? If you had a map, a big map the size of that wall, and you had a pin for each factory, you wouldn't have enough room. You think of it, 90,000 factories since NAFTA.
Yeah. So there's a guy in a black tie talking about the well-being of the blue collars and saying that these are people who've been savaged, totally savaged. 90,000 factories shut down. How has this worked out for us? Remember what we were sold on China? That if we just opened up our markets, we had all sorts of, quote, free trade with them. And of course, it's been rigged ever since. They've been rigging the process. That it would make them more democratic, that the country would become more like us. We'd be able to instill our Western values in them. Did any of that happen? No, actually. The Chinese Communist Party has a stranglehold on that system. They do everything they can to prevent Western ideologies from making it in. And instead, actually, they've been exporting their communist ideologies to the United States of America by way of places like Hollywood and TikTok and everything that they get their hands on. They've been buying up American real estate. China has been moving into the United States, not the other way around. So the president's saying, yeah, the people who are screeching the loudest are the ones who created that arrangement. And I'm fighting back against that now. Again, what we voted for. President Trump saying that he is proud to be the president of the American worker, which is a big change in Washington. Take a look at this. Cut 8. Here's the president.
Be the president for the workers, not the outsourcers. The president who stands up for Main Street, not Wall Street, who protects the middle class, not the political class, and who defends America, not trade cheaters all over the globe. They're trade cheaters. They cheated on us.
Yeah.
They cheated with tariffs on us. They stole our money. They stole our jobs.
He's the president of the working class, not the political class, he says, which is a very welcome change. This is why so many people are with him. There are surveys being done right now of Trump supporters. Are you with Trump still? Do you like this? Are you okay with this? And in majorities, Trump supporters are saying, yeah, I'm with him. I actually voted for this. This is a correction we desperately need because it's for the long-term well-being of our country. Trump supporters standing shoulder to shoulder with the president right now. Not hard to see why. Not when he says things like that. Not when he makes his intentions so well known. Also, I see some people in the chat asking about pharmaceuticals. Great question. Smart question asking about pharmaceuticals. Right now, 90% of generic pharmaceuticals come from India and China. So many of the ingredients come from China. You remember during COVID, far too dependent on medicine and personal protective equipment coming from China. That can't happen again. This is a national security imperative here. We've got to bring back pharmaceutical manufacturing to the United States. And first and foremost, we have to have a healthier country. That's the most important thing. That's what RFK is working on. So we don't need to take medicine at all if you're in a healthy state. But insofar as you have to take medicine for anything, we shouldn't be getting all of our amoxicillin from China, which is what's happening right now. That can't happen. You have to have it here in the United States. So the president announced last night to that congressional crowd, those tariffs, they're coming. We're bringing pharmaceuticals back. Look at this.
And the drug companies listen to them, but we're going to do something that we have to do. We're going to tariff our pharmaceuticals, and once we do that, they're going to come rushing back into our country because we're the big market. The advantage we have over everybody is that we're the big market. So we're going to be announcing very shortly a major tariff on pharmaceuticals, and when they hear that, they will leave China, they will leave other places because they have to sell. Most of their product is sold here, and they're going to be opening up their plants all over the place in our country. We're going to be announcing that, so that's breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, we have breaking news. That's what's going to happen. What other presidents allow China to get away with is absolutely criminal, but I'm not like the other presidents, and it's not going to happen under President Trump. It's just not going to happen. After all,
I'm not like the other presidents. I'm not like the other presidents, he says. Let me see here. Biden did tell what does that say? Part of that's covered for me. Does that say Detroit auto worker? Detroit. Okay, he told a Detroit auto worker, "I'm not working for you," during a gun rights argument. Yeah, that really is the opposite, isn't it? So President Trump says, "I'm the worker. I'm the guy who represents the workers." President Biden's attitude was, "I'm not working for you." That's the attitude that he took. Really amazing. Here, check this out. Let me see if I can play this for you. This is a sample of, fellas, we're going to try something. I haven't tried this before. Here's Joe Biden saying that.
You are actively trying to diminish your second amendment right and take away the gun. Your fourth year. Now, shush. Shush. I support the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, just like right now, if you yell fire, that's not free speech.
Yes, it is, by the way.
From the very beginning, I have a shotgun, I have a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, my son's hunt. Guess what? You're not allowed to own any weapon. I'm not taking your gun away at all. You need 100 rounds? I did not say that. I did not say that. It's a viral video like the other ones are putting out that are simply a lie. Your voice, you said that you're taking the gun. Oh, he just clarified it. Wait. Take your AR-14s and what?
AR-14s? What a psycho.
Hold on. Hey, let's get this real. There's a lot of guys. Wanting this. I'm not working. Give me a break, man. Don't be such a worry. Hey, there's a lot of
He said, "You're there." He said, "You're working for me." He says, "I'm not working for you. I don't work for you." Yeah, you do. That's the arrangement. Boy, oh boy, what a difference a president makes, huh? President Trump says, "Yeah, I'm the president who's here for the workers." The last guy, he straight up said, "I don't work for you," to an American voter in Detroit. Amazing, just amazing. Oh, thank God for this change. All right, let me get back to some of the stuff that Democrats are saying now about in the face of all of this. Now, Democrats for years, and to Caroline Leavitt's great credit, she's pointing out that for years they acted like they paid lip service to this issue, but as President Trump is finally doing something about it. Listen to the White House press secretary, cut 2, calling out Nancy Pelosi and company here.
Everybody in Washington, whether they want to admit it or not, knows that this president is right when it comes to tariffs and when it comes to trade. In fact, Democrats have long said that the United States of America has been ripped off by the countries around the world. They just don't want to admit it now because it's President Trump who is saying that. In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, "How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo?"
Okay, that's a good spot to stop. I want to play
1996.
I want to play Nancy Pelosi actually saying that now. Here's a little bit of Nancy Pelosi, 1996, saying this arrangement with China is killing American workers, she said. Meanwhile, Nancy Pelosi has become filthy rich in a market where that's been happening. Take a listen to what she said all those many years ago.
Do something about this U.S.-China trade relationship that is a job loser for the United States. And this brings us to the point that others have said, well, we can't isolate China. Do you think for 1 minute that with 10 million jobs at least and $35 billion and be over $40 billion this year in a trade surplus, all those billions of dollars in surplus, that the Chinese are going to walk away? Where are they going to take 35 to 40% of their exports? Who's going to buy them? This is what sustains the regime. The funding and the jobs. They can't have those people out of work. They have to be at work exporting to the United States.
Did you hear this? She knew. She knew back then. She was willing to say it. That's before she got filthy rich off of all of this. She benefited like crazy from this system, which is why she doesn't talk out about it now. And it's not just that Trump is doing it. It's that she's trying to protect her nest egg, the one that she built on your backs. What a cruel woman. What a cruel woman. So in 1996, admitting it, what's happening with China. And these Democrats, there's a whole bunch of them that are losing their minds about all this. Scott Jennings over on CNN, who seems like a pretty good American, actually. Scott Jennings was calling all of this out this week, saying it's amazing. These Democrats who used to be for tariffs and now they claim that they're free traders. It's preposterous. Look at Scott.
It's only part of the deal. The other part of the deal is making the tax cuts permanent, and maybe even, if I were them, cut the capital gains tax and offer to slash the corporate tax rate and see if you can get any Democrats to join, because I'm amused by the Democrats who are all of a sudden free traders and for lower taxes.
Definition of a recession in order to avoid admitting that we were in one, right? Because the customary understanding of a recession, anybody who's even aware of basic economics knows that if you have two shrinking quarters in a row, which we did under Joe Biden, you're in a recession. 2 quarters in a row, GDP going down, you're in a recession. That's it. Everyone understood that. When that started happening with each successive quarter in the Biden administration, they changed the definition. Janet Yellen came out and said, well, that's not technically the definition. There's a very sophisticated definition that you're too stupid to understand. But just trust me, we're not in a recession. Of course we were. Of course we were. And these Democrats didn't want to admit it. So Scott Jennings pointing out, yeah, look, these Democrats are absurd. They just are going to root against Trump for sure. And the basic theme is they're always rooting against the American people. So the second somebody comes in with a corrective who's trying to fix this system up, they root against it. They root against it. And back when they put this system in place, when Joe Biden was a United States Senator, Bernie Sanders, all these guys, when they put this stuff in place, they put it in place and they knew it was going to hurt us. And it did over the course of decades. And they sold it to us like it was going to change China into some sort of Asian version of the United States. Didn't happen, as you well know. The president taking on that big issue today in a big way. All the updates as we get them, I'll bring you here on Vince. Thank you, as always, for your attention to this program.
Welcome. You are watching The Lineup live exclusively on Rumble from 9 a.m. Eastern to 4 p.m. Eastern. Rumble, we own live. You just keep watching. It rolls into the next show. Number one in their time slot for live streaming now for several weeks straight. We thank you very much. We know that you have a Well, you don't have that many choices. Most of the stuff out there is crap. Welcome, Bongino Army. I know he's doing some work there at the FBI, doing the Lord's work. And so you're here from Vince, which comes from Vincente, which actually in Latin translates to approximately, I'm not racist, but. Today, we are going to be discussing the tariffs coming back from China. Look, let me distill this for you. We're going to make the case. The tariff war needs to take place so that we can avoid actual war. That's what the Cold War was. This is actually more severe. This is a new Cold War. It's to avoid an actual war. How do you think this plays out? How do you think it ends? We'll get into that. Also, the left versus reality. It's a new installment, the Nature Edition, because the dire wolf has been the point of a lot of debate. But wolves, grizzly bears, and seals, what do they have in common? Well, conservationists tried to fix the ecosystem, and they screwed up the ecosystem. Also, Crockett's a racist. We'll get to that and more, but first, this.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the constitutional law that created this country. And some people don't. Faggots started liberalism. Mugcluck can stop it.
Click Rumble Premium and join now for $99 annually or $9.99 a month to get the entirely ad-free experience and an ever-expanding roster of content, creators, and free speech. Glad to be with you. 11 a.m. Eastern, weekdays as always. Question of the day. We kind of got away from this. If you could de-extinct, if you will, perhaps you might, anyone or anything throughout all of human history of the animal kingdom, who or what would it be? Who or what would it be? Of course, the natural answer is Jesus, but then I'd undo the whole prophecy, so I don't know. That could be sacrilegious.
Then we don't get saved, and that's so bad.
Captain Morgan is here, CEO. So is Pops Crowder, along with your favorite, one of your favorites here in third chair. He's going to be actually at the Cohoes Music Hall in Cohoes, New York, April 25th. Funniest man alive, Nick DiPaolo, fresh off of his vacation in the Bahamas, swimming with pigs, actually.
Yeah.
And we have, there
you go. She ate two apples out of my hand.
She gets apple crazy.
Oh, she's such a do-bag. Anyways.
The funny thing is we created that Photoshop, and then AI made Rosie O'Donnell look Asian, and it was somehow more unsettling.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
That's Rosie O'Donnell.
Hey, how we were just learning about that. I for some reason thought the Bahamas were the Caribbean, and then I realized that a lot of places we thought were in the Caribbean are not.
At least the way that's what I was told by the travel agent.
Yes. How was it? Was it nice?
Oh, it's tremendous.
Yeah.
You know, me and the wife, just tremendous. Played Jeopardy.
Uh-oh. Did you play with Wolf Blitzer?
Wolf Blitzer looks the same today as he did in third grade.
Well,
he's always been a depressed German with a receding hairline. No, it's a great vacation. I read a few books, and I had a Heineken in my hand, like around the clock.
There's nothing like a Heineken on the beach with Mein Kampf to relax.
And then, I read that like in seventh grade. No, this is better stuff.
All right, we have a lot to get to, but this is so I haven't seen this, but apparently Immaculate Conception among lesbians, because it's 2025, is alive and well.
I haven't had sex since Roe v. Wade was overturned back in 2021. As soon as they
With that
announced that they
face?
overturned Roe v.
That's
Wade,
why.
my wife and I decided that we didn't want to risk getting pregnant, and the only way to really prevent that was for both of us to close our legs. It's not that we didn't want kids, it's that we didn't want either one of us to fall pregnant and then there be complications and us not have access to medically necessary abortion. And while we both had IUDs at the time because we weren't ready to have a baby, we still liked having the idea of an abortion as a backup plan, just in case. All this to say, we haven't had sex since 2021, but my wife is pregnant. Now you might be thinking, Cass, she definitely cheated on you. But she told me she didn't, and she's given me no reason for me not to believe her.
Except that
we
she
prayed
is with
about it, and we've been
child.
wanting kids
I am
for a
so
while, but
confused
we were,
right now.
scared of this whole thing.
I can't
We
do
prayed
the
about
math.
it, and we
I
said,
can't
well,
even do it. I can't even.
if
No.
it happens,
she can't
it
either.
happens. If God wants us to have a kid,
What?
He will impregnate one of us. And
God
he impregnated
hates
my
you.
wife. We are expecting a little they-them in November of 2025.
Look, you are two lesbians with IUDs not having sex post Roe v. Wade, and your lesbian wife is pregnant. Do not call upon the Lord's name. He has damned you to hell.
Call David Copperfield. What the hell is she talking about?
Just David Blaine mounting her wife in the
That
corner.
would have been a better one.
No,
actually.
what?
That's right. Yeah.
What the?
Whack people on a chair. Oh, damn!
Oh no! I was about to say, yeah. Call the guy plowing
Cheating
your
with
wife,
Chris
okay?
Angel.
This is how delusional the left is. This person, please, mission control, fact check. This is not a troll, right? This is real.
Well, that's
from what I understand. This is real. These people are so married to the issue of abortion that no one stops two lesbians with IUDs who are celibate and says, "What? My wife has given me no reason to believe she's cheating. The baby in her stomach? Is that not like, that's not a reason. It's almost as though that is undeniable proof."
She skipped biology class. So.
no. I thought that was the craziest part. And then she was like, well, and then we prayed about it. And we're like, well, if God wants us to have a baby. And I'm just like, okay, this got crazier for me. I thought it was as far as it could go. But it's not, apparently.
Does God want you to have a baby? And no one has a monopoly on talking to God. But hold on. Ring, ring. No, he doesn't.
I'm going to go out on a limb.
I don't even know.
I know. It's hard because you guys hadn't seen it. That's how insane it is. Where no one in the studio can make sense of it because it's nonsensical.
It has to be.
I was literally sitting here going, am I missing? Is there a transgender angle in here?
So did I. Yeah.
Right? Does she have a husband? But he wouldn't be getting. No,
You couldn't find the angle. There's no
I
angle.
can't anymore. This is like talking about business and money for me now.
This is what's
someone has an IUD
I
in their
understand none
Johnson.
of it.
Yeah, this is what happens.
Yeah.
It starts with love is love. I disagree. I disagree. I don't think all loves are equal. And I don't think that all loves are equivalent, just to be clear. Why? Well, because one can lead to obviously conception, giving birth, and rearing a child without an insane amount of confusion. Let's not act like they're equivalent. Love is love. Okay, this is what it gets you. I know people think I'm to the right of Attila the Hun, even on social issues. I was against same-sex marriage then because of this. And now you see why. And also, you can comment below, hey, do you believe her?
She ought to write a book called Heather Has Two Morons.
Well, the good news is, as of November 5th, we don't have to worry about this anymore.
That dirty. God, and the face on her. Anybody wants to tap that?
Yeah,
Holy
the
God.
face Mel Gibson sees in his nightmares.
I just love watching you go through the Rolodex looking for Chris Angel.
Yeah. I almost went with Houdini.
By the way, there is a new David Blaine show that I highly recommend on Discovery where he just goes around and like he kisses a cobra or some shit. So
really?
He just goes and it's not magic, but he goes and does fire breathing and chewing razors and he kissed a cobra.
Okay.
He was like, I've always wanted to kiss a cobra. You're like, why? Why did you always want to? There you go. Kissing a cobra.
I've seen that. Is it the people in India that do that?
Yeah, well, this one was Thailand, but then he goes to India. They
kiss one like right on the nose.
Yeah, they kiss
sometimes they get clipped, and it's funny. They get sick and they die.
They start screaming like they're playing Russian roulette and Deer Hunter. Hey, no!
Yeah, no! Kiss him, Nikki. Kiss him.
All right. Okay. Hey, we have a new confirmation here. Yesterday, the Senate confirmed a new Trump cabinet official. And this is a pretty big one. Might fly under the radar, but Albert Jacoby was confirmed to serve as Defense Department Undersecretary for Policy.
I know that sounds...
God.
It's a real thing, but the vote was 54-45, and then we'll show you who voted no.
On this vote, the yeas are 54, the nays are 45, and the nomination is confirmed. Under the previous order to motion, the motion to reconsider is considered made and laid upon the table, and the president will be immediately notified of the Senate's actions.
You just had to make it through two phrases, and you couldn't?
It's just you had one job.
So there were three Democrats who voted yes, and McConnell voted no. Surprise.
You're an asshole.
Saying abandoning Ukraine and Europe is downplaying the Middle East to prioritize the Indo-Pacific is not a clever geopolitical chess move. It is geostrategic self-harm that emboldens our adversaries and drives wedges between America and our allies for them to exploit. Okay, I understand that. It would hold water if Europe, who demands that we spend more money on the war between Ukraine and Russia, didn't spend all of their money, by the way, on Russian energy while putting tariffs on ours. But let me ask you this. You're talking about emboldening our adversaries. Where do you line up on the tariffs with China? McConnell? Who's a greater threat, Russia or China?
That was written by a staffer. McConnell didn't write that.
No, of course.
His stroke brain doesn't know half those words.
No way.
I know.
No way.
Grok auto-corrected.
Filling his diaper as he talks.
So, Kobe, just to be clear, he's a hawk on China who has advocated for, and all references available, links in the description, an increased focus overall on China and the Asia Pacific, a decreased focus on Ukraine, increased defense spending from our allies specifically in Asia. And he actually made this statement at the confirmation hearing himself.
Taiwan is very important to the United States, but as you said, it's not an existential interest. It's very important. The core American interest is in denying China regional hegemony. What's changed, Senator, as we discussed, is the dramatic deterioration of the military balance. So my view that the combination of the greater threat from China and the lack of preparedness on our part, I have a different assessment with respect, Senator, about Taiwan's efforts. I think actually as a proportion of GDP, it's well below 3%. I agree with President Trump that they should be more like 10%, or at least something in that ballpark, really focused on their defense. So we need to properly incentivize them. So together, that means that my focus has been, again, with the shooting the flare metaphor I used earlier, Senator, to get Taiwan motivated, to avoid precipitating a conflict that is not necessary with Beijing, and giving us time and space to be able to try to rectify this problem, because that is my goal, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Quayle.
Pretty sharp. I was going to say, Mission Control, get a picture of him in the middle. He is the love child of Tucker Carlson and Ed Begley Jr. They had a baby. It's Colby. And for those of you wondering, by the way, Colby cheese originated in Colby, Wisconsin in 1885, developed by Joseph F. Steinway, who, of course, named it after the township where his father built the first cheese factory. And that's been this week's Cheese Facts.
Is that my phone? I got a message from my wife.
Today, a little bit of what you came for and some of what you didn't. So let's go to
that's a little fortune cookie.
China.
Great.
I don't know. And by the way, the Chinese, if nothing else, the reason that we should go to war, they don't have one good dessert in the country.
What is a Chinese dessert?
Fortune cookie.
It's a cookie with a piece of
not
newspaper.
That's all it is. Somebody had extra time and they're like, I'll write this on a thing, whatever.
They put frosting on an eel.
That's true.
It's always when you get Asian, you're like, what's the Thai do? They have the sticky mango rice with the coconuts. That's pretty good. But you know what? Comment below if I'm missing something. Do the Chinese have any good desserts? I don't know. Let's talk about China right now, because obviously we've discussed the tariffs, and I know that people have tariff fatigue, and I know the markets are pretty volatile. But I want to be clear about something here. The tariff war that is going on, it is necessary to avoid a real war, to avoid an actual physical war. Let me ask you this. Do you doubt that the end game here is war with China? Do you doubt that at some point the Western world is going to have to go to war with a communist dictatorship who, by the way, has said that they seek to destroy and undermine Western civilization? Do you acknowledge that? Let me ask you, would you rather have a Cold War or an actual war with China. The Cold War was to avoid, obviously, actual war. Now, in that case, I would even argue that there was more miscommunication, there was more suspicion there, and Russia was not the kind of global superpower that that China is in comparison to the United States. China has used our systems to subvert them, and they seek to destroy the United States. Let me even go one step further. If some people will say, well, their goal is just to basically take over our economy. Okay. So let's say that happens and they cripple us. Do you honestly believe that the Chinese at that point won't strike? You think it ends with you stay over there and we stay over here? There's going to be a clash. And I want to give you an example here, too. We can kind of see what would happen with some industries. People are saying, well, all these industries that rely on China, sure, like rare earth minerals. Perfect example because it also deals with communism, cigars. Okay? There was the embargo put on Cuba, Cuban cigars. They basically had a monopoly on the industry, right? A communist country, Cuba, it's God's gift to Cuba, the soil. When we put the embargo on Cuba, they moved to the Dominican, they moved to Honduras, then eventually Nicaragua. And there are more fantastic cigars now than ever before. It was actually so much a given that JFK, when he signed the embargo, that day, for people who don't know, he had his assistant go out and purchase 1,200 Petit Upmann cigars before the embargo went into effect. So at that point in time, people were going, well, say goodbye to cigars. There are more cigars than ever. The cigar boom happened after that. You think that can't happen with other industries as it relates to China?
Yeah.
Maybe not with every industry, but it certainly can. We don't know what it looks like yet. That's an unknown. What we do know, I would argue, and you can comment below, this ends in war with China unless something changes at some point, which I don't want. Now, if you doubt that, don't take my word for it. China has vowed to fight until the very end. Do you know what that means against the U.S.?
If the U.S. overlooks the interests of the two countries and the international community and is determined to fight a tariff and a trade war, China's response will continue to the end. Next one, please.
Now, what does the end mean? Remember, last month, China's foreign ministry said on X, if a war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight till the end. They've told you. They've given you the blueprint. Some tariffs kind of seem like we're getting out easy at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah. It doesn't seem like, there's a bit of a trap that we're kind of all heading into with this, and that China doesn't have any kind of an off-ramp. Based on what they're saying right now, we're going to fight to the end. I didn't realize the X Post had that as well. I knew they would say any kind of war you want, but they're like, oh, we're ready to fight to the end. Okay. That's the posturing that's going on right now.
Right.
Hopefully, and I think Donald Trump knows how to do this, he gives them an off-ramp that helps them save face, and we avoid the war, but we correct the economic problem.
I hope we do, but we don't have an off-ramp.
No.
Unless we correct the economic problem.
Not. Absolutely not.
That's the issue. There is no off-ramp from the direction we are headed right now, unless something changes.
And the media has half the public believing that the tariffs are going to cause an actual war. Just the opposite.
And
they're coming out in parks and droves.
It could happen, but it's not happening because of the tariffs. It's happening because it was going to happen anyway.
Yes.
Now, there's never been a point in human history, aside from maybe the Cold War, where you have a world economic superpower and another one coming up with fundamentally different values, and they don't clash. You can go back to the Greeks, the Romans, the Persians, the Ottomans, the Mongolians. It's human nature. And China, absolutely and expressly, they state they hate everything that we're about, and they want to use our systems to subvert and destroy our economic systems. This is the government of Mao. I'm not a war hawk. This is not me pulling a McConnell or Ukraine. I'm saying to avoid war, we have to uncouple from China. So yesterday, for those of you who missed it, the tariffs from President Trump became official, well, I guess today, midnight, including 104%, a massive rate on China.
I just spoke to the president about this, and he believes that China wants to make a deal with the United States. He believes China has to make a deal with the United States. It was a mistake for China to retaliate. The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight. But the president believes that Xi and China want to make a deal. They just don't know how to get that started. And the president also wanted me to tell all of you that if China reaches out to make a deal, he'll be incredibly gracious, but it's going to be what's best for the American people.
She is a tiny package of dynamite, and if I was Donald Trump, I would send her into negotiate because she'd still be larger. Yeah. Let's make a lightning. What do you have such make a lightning? No, she's actually about average. Oh no! Well, that's just like the tiny doesn't want to be referred to as she. She, same thing. I will also accept banging that. So, this might sound like a lot, 104%. Because people will point to Donald Trump and they'll point to business folks and say, well, some ties we're making China. Well, you know, business owners who have their stuff manufactured in China. In many cases, there is no ability outside of that because our current economic system is predicated on cheap labor from China. We've talked about this with mugs. We can get them painted, etched. There's no one who can meet capacity. So I would actually see that as a virtue. Someone who would stand to benefit from cheap labor, like Donald Trump or like Kevin O'Leary, who we'll get to, is saying this is not sustainable. We have to do it this way now, but we don't want to. 104%